It's 2,000 years ago in ancient India, and a woman just took control of one of the most powerful empires in the subcontinent. A woman who performed imperial rituals that challenged every social norm, who commissioned monuments that still stand after 2 millennia, who ruled an empire so vast it stretched from sea to sea. Meet Queen Nayanika, the forgotten empress whose legacy will shatter everything you think you know about women in ancient India. Queen Nayanika ruled the Satavahana Empire in the 1st century BCE, commanding armies with over 1,000 war elephants and controlling a kingdom that stretched across the heart of India. And here's what makes her story groundbreaking. Nayanika is India's first historically confirmed female ruler, the first woman whose reign we can verify through archaeological evidence. Through her famous Naneghat inscription, a stone document that survived over 2,000 years, we'll discover how she maintained control over trade routes worth millions, performed rituals that challenged social norms, and left behind evidence of wealth that would make modern billionaires jealous. We'll explore her strategic political moves, the massive sacrificial ceremonies she sponsored, including donating thousands of horses, coins, and cattle that demonstrated unimaginable power. And we'll even find out how her dynasty's sheer power so impressed the Roman writer Pliny the Elder that he documented it in his natural history. Let's dive into this forgotten chapter of history. To understand Queen Nayanika's incredible achievement, we need to grasp the sheer scale of power she inherited and protected. The Satavahana dynasty wasn't some small kingdom. This was an empire that filled the massive power vacuum left when the legendary Mauryan Empire collapsed. Imagine controlling territory that today spans across the Indian states of Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and parts of Gujarat, Karnataka, and Madhya Pradesh. We're talking about an empire that stretched from the Arabian Sea to the Bay of Bengal, essentially controlling the entire width of peninsular India. Queen Nayanika's husband, King Satakarni I, forged this empire through relentless military campaigns and strategic conquests. But the most telling sign of their power? Satakarni performed the Ashvamedha, an extraordinary ritual that proclaimed an emperor's dominion over vast territories. This wasn't just a religious ceremony. Now, before I tell you about the Ashvamedha ritual that could literally declare war on neighboring kingdoms, let me know in the comments. Have you ever heard of Queen Nayanika before this video? I bet most of you haven't, and that's what makes discovering her story so fascinating. She ruled a mighty and powerful empire, yet her name barely echoes through history. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder, writing in the 1st century AD, was so impressed by the dynasty's power that he documented it in his natural history. He described Satavahana kingdom as one that possessed a great number of fortified towns and a military force that would make any emperor jealous. 100,000 foot soldiers, 2,000 cavalry, and 1,000 elephants. For context, that's more war elephants than Hannibal used to cross the Alps and terrorize Rome. Just imagine the ground shaking as 1,000 of these massive creatures charged into battle. Here's where things get interesting. Satakarni first claimed the grand title Dakshinapathapati, Lord of the Southern region. But claiming power and keeping it are two different things. The rival king Kharavela of Kalinga actually invaded Satavahana territory, sending armies with cavalry, elephants, and chariots that terrorized border regions. How did Satakarni respond? Not just with military force, but with something far more powerful, ritual authority. He performed the ultimate ancient Indian power move, the Ashvamedha, or horse sacrifice, not once, but twice. Let me explain why this is so significant. The Ashvamedha wasn't just a religious ceremony, it was the most politically charged ritual in ancient India. Here's how it worked. The Ashvamedha was ancient India's ultimate declaration of imperial sovereignty. The ritual was so complex and expensive that they were performed only by a sovereign ruler to proclaim undisputed imperial dominion and lasted nearly a year. A consecrated horse was released to wander freely, guarded by the king's army. Wherever the horse traveled became symbolically part of the king's domain. And here's the brutal part. Any ruler who tried to stop or capture that horse was declaring war on the king who sent it. If the horse returned unchallenged after a year, it meant every ruler along its path had acknowledged the king's supreme authority. If it entered rival territory, that ruler had to either submit or fight. When the horse was finally recovered, it underwent ritual consecration and sacrifice. The king could then claim the title of emperor and demand tribute from all those territories. Nayanika did not merely attend. Surviving inscriptions show she played an active, visible role, standing alongside her husband, presiding over the elaborate, weeks-long ceremonies and dispensing unprecedented wealth, carriages, horses, elephants, and thousands of Karshapana coins to the priests. The profound partnership was shattered by the early death of King Satakarni I, leaving the nascent empire at a perilous crossroads. The legal succession immediately fell to their two infant sons, Vedasri and Saktisri. The Satavahana Empire faced its greatest crisis. The children were too young to rule. Ancient Indian monarchies were violently unstable when led by a minor, especially one ruling a newly expanded territory surrounded by rivals. A political vacuum would have invited immediate invasion from the Shungas in the north or the formidable King Kharavela of Kalinga. This is where Queen Nayanika made a decision that would change history. Instead of stepping aside or ruling from the shadows like most royal women of her time, she declared herself regent and took direct control of the empire. But here's what makes her story absolutely extraordinary. She didn't just claim power, she had to defend it immediately. Now, this is where Nayanika's political brilliance shines. She didn't try to rule alone. That would have been suicide in ancient Indian politics. She leveraged her powerful family connections. She came from the Marathi clan. Think of them as ancient India's equivalent of a powerful military family. Her father wasn't just some nobleman. He was Maharathi Tranakayira, a title meaning great warrior or master of all combat. When you have a military powerhouse as your backing, people tend to listen. By combining royal legitimacy with military backing from her warrior clan, she created a power base strong enough to hold the empire together. But the most audacious thing she did? She commissioned a monument that would literally carve her achievements in stone for eternity. And what she wrote there reveals secrets about ancient Indian royal power that most people never learn. So where did she choose to make her statement? Deep in the western Ghats of Maharashtra, there's a mountain pass called Naneghat. 2,000 years ago, this wasn't just a scenic route, it was the ancient equivalent of a major international highway, connecting the bustling ports of the Arabian Sea to the inland markets of the Deccan Plateau. And this is exactly where Queen Nayanika chose to build her monument. She commissioned an entire cave complex with life-sized sculptures of the royal family and detailed inscriptions listing their achievements. The inscription reads like a royal resume. It lists about 20 different Vedic sacrifices performed by the royal family, including detailed donations that showcase incredible wealth. Nayanika didn't just record her accomplishments, she itemized her wealthy donations with shocking precision. Listen to these numbers: 11,000 cows and 1,000 horses donated in a single ritual. Over 30,000 silver coins distributed to priests and spectators. In other ceremonies, donated items included 10 elephants, chariots, bundles of clothes, and silver vessels. But here's what makes this inscription revolutionary. Nayanika carved her name as the primary patron and the credit for performing sacred rituals. Every rival who read this inscription would understand. This kingdom has money, this queen has divine approval, and challenging her means facing not just armies, but the wrath of the gods themselves. The inscription also reveals something extraordinary about ancient Indian society that contradicts everything we've been taught. This is particularly noteworthy while the Manusmriti, a text compiled around the Satavahana period, generally restricted women's access to Vedic learning and rituals. Real women like Nayanika were wielding unprecedented power. She maintained control over a complex feudal system with multiple levels of nobles. The inscriptions reveal something fascinating about her strategy. She describes herself not just as a queen, but as a devout woman. She proudly declared that she kept month-long fasts and observed chastity, Karita Brahmacharya. Crucially, she said she lived like an ascetic in her own home, Griha Tapasa, and that she was highly acquainted with vows and sacrificial rituals. Why? Because in a world that questioned a woman holding supreme power, Nayanika was sending an unmistakable message. I may be a woman, but I am the most morally pure, divinely approved guardian of this kingdom. Here's where Nayanika's story gets really impressive. Satavahanas controlled the ancient world's equivalent of major international highways, some of the most lucrative trade routes in the ancient world, connecting northern India with southern ports and linking the subcontinent to Roman trade networks. Every Roman merchant wanting to trade with inland India had to pass through Satavahana territory. Every precious stone, every bolt of silk, every spice that moved between the western ports like Sopara and the eastern coast had to go through their lands. Picture this: merchants carrying spices, textiles, and precious stones from India's interior would travel through Satavahana territory to reach ports on both the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Every transaction meant taxes, every caravan meant revenue. The empire essentially functioned as a toll booth for transcontinental commerce. Archaeological evidence shows Roman coins scattered throughout Satavahana territory, proving direct trade connections with the Mediterranean world. Romans were obsessed with Indian goods, spices that could preserve food, textiles finer than anything produced in Europe, and gemstones that became symbols of imperial Roman wealth. But here's the most fascinating detail. Among those statues was Queen Nayanika herself, and she's the only Satavahana queen to appear on coins. In the ancient world, having your image on currency was the ultimate statement of sovereignty. The Satavahanas were among the first South Indian rulers to issue standardized coinage with their names inscribed. This monetization eliminated the complexity of barter systems and facilitated large-scale commerce. When the Naneghat inscription records payments in thousands of Kashapanas, it's documenting a sophisticated monetary economy that most contemporary kingdoms lacked. Now, if you're finding this story as mind-blowing as I am, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps me know you want more content about incredible historical figures like Queen Nayanika. Queen Nayanika's story reveals something profound about ancient India: that political necessity and exceptional circumstances could override even the strongest social conventions. She ruled not as a caretaker, but as a sovereign, performing the rituals, commanding the armies, and leaving monuments that would outlast empires. Today, her inscriptions still stand in the Western Ghats, weathered but unbroken after 2 millennia. She speaks to us directly through her own commissioned words. I was here, I ruled, remember me. What makes her legacy remarkable is her role as regent during a critical transition period. The dynasty she helped preserve would eventually reach its greatest heights under rulers like Gautamiputra Satakani in the 2nd century CE. Now here's what makes this period truly remarkable. The Satavahanas practiced matronymics. Rulers were named after their mothers, such as Gautamiputra, son of Gautami, or Vasistiputra, son of Vasishtha. Intercaste marriages were common. Satavahana kings married foreign Saka princesses, and widows like Nayanika could openly rule kingdoms. So was this society actually more flexible and progressive than the centuries that followed? If Queen Nayanika's incredible story amazed you, don't let her legacy fade again. Subscribe right now to help these forgotten voices reach millions. Hit that like button to push this story to more people and turn on notifications because I'm uncovering more buried chapters of history. What other ancient Indian queens do you think deserve their stories told? Drop their names in the comments below.